Just imagine stepping into a flying taxi, no fuel, no charging stations, no noise, just clean, limitless power keeping you in the air. Sounds like something straight out of Elon Musk's futuristic playbook, right? Well, here's the shocker. It didn't come from Silicon Valley or even from SpaceX. This groundbreaking leap in aviation has just been unveiled in Africa, and even Elon Musk is stunned. This isn't just another electric drone project or a fancy engineering concept. Africa's new self-powered air taxi represents something far more radical, a vehicle capable of powering itself without traditional batteries, without fossil fuels, and without constant recharging stops. So how does it work? Reports suggest that the air taxi integrates self-sustaining energy systems, a breakthrough many thought impossible. Instead of relying on heavy batteries that limit flight times, this aircraft taps into continuous energy generation, creating an almost endless flight cycle. In other words, it has the potential to fly as long as passengers need, without ever stopping for a recharge. If true, this innovation alone could make even Tesla's most advanced battery research look outdated. The implications are staggering. Imagine cities where traffic jams vanish overnight as self-powered air taxis crisscross the skies. Imagine remote villages connected instantly to major hubs without needing roads, fuel, or expensive infrastructure. And here's where it gets even bigger. This invention could place Africa at the very center of the next industrial revolution in clean transportation. Elon Musk, a man who has built his career on revolutionary ideas, from reusable rockets to electric vehicles, has reportedly been caught off guard. Why? Because this African breakthrough challenges the very foundation of what companies like Tesla, SpaceX, and even global aviation giants are working toward. So, the question is no longer if self-powered flight is possible. The question is, who will control the skies of the future? Will Africa's self-powered air taxi redefine global power dynamics, or will established giants fight back to claim the lead? One thing is certain. The world has just witnessed a shift, and the race of future flight has officially taken off. If you found this as fascinating as we did, hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned. Because the future of technology is unfolding faster than anyone imagined, and we'll be here to take you inside every breakthrough. But behind this remarkable air taxi lies a story far deeper than just engineering genius. It's the story of a continent often underestimated, now daring to challenge the narrative of global innovation. For decades, Africa has been seen as a consumer of technology, rarely the producer. Yet in recent years, a silent transformation has been taking place, driven by visionary inventors, engineers, and entrepreneurs who are determined to solve local problems with world-shaking solutions. The self-powered air taxi is not an isolated invention. It's part of a wave of African-led innovations, from self-charging electric cars to off-grid power systems, to clean energy breakthroughs that are rewriting the rules of what's possible. And here's what makes this development even more disruptive. This isn't just about flying vehicles. It's about control of the future energy economy. Oil-rich nations and fossil fuel giants depend on the world's reliance on fuel. Tech giants in the West depend on battery markets. But a self-powered vehicle, whether on land or in the air, threatens to break that dependence entirely. If Africa's air taxi succeeds, the ripple effect could send shockwaves across OPEC, Tesla, Airbus, and even governments that have invested billions in old infrastructure. Of course, every revolution faces resistance. Questions are being raised. Can the technology scale? Is it safe? Can it withstand the pressures of real-world use and global adoption? And then there's a political challenge. Global powers may not easily accept Africa leapfrogging into the front seat of future transportation. History shows us that disruptive ideas often face oppression before acceptance. So now the world is watching closely. Will Africa's self-powered air taxi soar into mass adoption, or will it face the same fate as countless suppressed technologies before it? And more importantly, what will Elon Musk and other global tech leaders do next? Will they try to collaborate, compete, or quietly push back against this African leap forward? As the air taxi makes headlines, the world's most powerful industries are moving into action. Aviation regulators, energy lobbies, and even military strategists are quietly assessing the implications. Because if Africa's self-powered air taxi really works as claimed, it's not just a transportation upgrade. It's a strategic weapon of innovation. A nation or even a small company that controls such a technology could suddenly hold leverage over entire economies. Behind closed doors, think tanks in Washington, Beijing, and Brussels are already drafting scenarios. How do you regulate a sky filled with silent, self-powered flying machines? How do you compete with a vehicle that doesn't need airports, fuel stations, or conventional supply chains? Whispers are spreading that some governments are preparing to either invest heavily or attempt to suppress the technology before it disrupts global balance. But what makes this story so fascinating is the people behind it. The inventors driving this revolution are not billionaire CEOs with global fame. They're engineers working in modest labs, universities, and small startups across Africa. For them, this isn't just about prestige. It's about solving problems that have plagued their communities for decades. Poor infrastructure, unreliable energy, and limited access to mobility. In creating a self-powered air taxi, they've not only dreamed of the future, they've built a tool that could rewrite it. Right now, test flights are drawing crowds. Investors are circling. Critics are sharpening their arguments. But one thing is clear. The conversation about the future flight has shifted. It no longer belongs only to the West, to Silicon Valley, or to billionaire tech moguls. It now belongs to Africa, a continent rewriting the rules of innovation with one breathtaking launch after another. But as Africa's skies fill with whispers of a new era, powerful forces are beginning to close in already. Reports suggest that Western aerospace giants are lobbying quietly, arguing that self-powered air taxis pose a regulatory risk until they can be studied further. Behind this polished language, however, lies a deeper fear. Fear that an African-born innovation could dethrone decades of dominance held by companies like Boeing, Airbus, and even Tesla's aviation projects in development. And then there's Elon Musk. For years, Musk has spoken about electric flight, about vertical takeoff, and landing craft powered by advanced batteries. Yet, here he is, facing a reality where Africa has leapfrogged that path entirely. And so, a new race is quietly forming. Some countries are sending delegations to Africa, disguised as partnerships, but with intentions of buying out patents, controlling licenses, or even absorbing the inventors themselves. Others are playing a longer game, waiting to see if the air taxi survives the storm of skepticism and sabotage that often greets world-changing inventions. But Africa's innovators are not blind to this. They've seen this playbook before. Resources taken, ideas claimed, brilliance erased from history. This time, they are preparing defenses, open collaborations across nations, public demonstrations, and alliances that make the air taxi not just a product, but a symbol of sovereignty. In other words, this isn't just about a flying machine. It's about Africa refusing to surrender its future. But the more Africa rises, the higher the pressure mounts. Already, whispers of corporate espionage are surfacing. Leaked documents hint at global players plotting ways to either buy, block, or break this technology before it takes full flight. As the air taxi success ripples across headlines, something darker begins to stir beneath the surface. Africa's innovation, once dismissed, is now attracting attention from forces that operate far from the spotlight. Strange incidents start happening. Labs testing the prototypes report mysterious power outages. Key researchers receive lucrative offers from unknown investors, offers designed to pull them quietly out of their work. And in at least one case, a shipment of critical components vanishes en route to a testing facility. Whispers of corporate espionage grow louder. Insiders claim that rival companies have begun deploying their own covert operatives to acquire blueprints, schematics, or even bribe their way into the circle of inventors. The stakes are staggering. Whoever controls this technology won't just sell air taxis. They'll hold the keys to a new global transportation empire. Billions, maybe trillions, hang in the balance. But Africa is not unprepared. The inventors and their backers, aware of the vultures circling above, adopt a bold strategy. They move their research into distributed labs across multiple nations, so no single facility can hold a complete secret. They begin working with trusted universities, startups, and even open-source networks, ensuring that even if one lab is compromised, the innovation cannot be erased. What began as a prototype is now becoming a continent-wide movement. The response abroad grows tense. In Washington, defense analysts warn of a strategic disruption to airspace dominance. In Beijing, state media hints that China could provide partnership and protection if Africa aligns with their interests. In Europe, aviation giants scramble to propose their own projects that suddenly look outdated by comparison. And as these power games unfold, ordinary citizens across the globe watch in awe. For the first time, they see the future not dictated by Silicon Valley or Wall Street, but by African skies. Yet with every flight demonstration, with every headline, the danger grows. The question is no longer, can this air taxi fly? It's, can it survive the storm gathering around it? It was meant to be a routine demonstration, an event designed to show journalists, investors, and curious onlookers that Africa's self-powered air taxi was not just a prototype, but a working reality. The crowd gathered, cameras rolled, and the sleek craft stood waiting on its launch pad. But just minutes before takeoff, something went wrong. The control system began to behave erratically. Sensors flickered. The onboard diagnostics screamed at anomalies that had never appeared before. At first, engineers thought it was a technical glitch until they uncovered fragments of malicious code buried in the flight's software. What they found was chilling. The code wasn't a random error. It was deliberately injected. Someone, somewhere, had attempted to override the air taxi safety protocols. Had the craft launched under those conditions, the consequences could have been catastrophic. Instead of a triumph, the world would have witnessed a disaster. An invention dismissed as unsafe, a movement derailed in one calculated strike. But who was behind it? Was it a competitor desperate to stall the momentum? Was it a foreign intelligence agency fearing the loss of global dominance? Or was it even closer, an insider persuaded or paid off to sabotage from within? No answers emerged, only questions. And with them, the realization that the race for the skies had entered a far more dangerous phase, a battle fought not just in boardrooms and laboratories, but in the shadows. Yet, instead of crushing the movement, the attempted sabotage had the opposite effect. The story spread like wildfire. People across Africa and around the globe rallied in support, seeing the attack as proof of just how threatening this innovation was to the old order. If they tried to stop it, one headline read, "It must be real." And so, Africa's self-powered air taxi was no longer just a machine. It was a symbol of resilience, of independence, of a continent daring to rise against centuries of being underestimated. But symbols are dangerous. They inspire hope and they provoke fear. And now, the question that looms over every flight test is not only, will it work, but also, will someone try to stop it again? As the sabotage attempt made headlines, global powers could no longer ignore Africa's self-powered air taxi. What began as whispers and secret meetings erupted into a public standoff. In Washington, policymakers declared the technology a matter of international concern. In Beijing, state media offered full-throated support, promising investment and protection. Europe scrambled to regulate what it did not yet understand. The world was officially divided. But while the world debated, Africa made its move. The inventors and their backers announced a bold decision. The air taxi technology would not be sold to any single power. Instead, it would be shared across African nations first, ensuring that its benefits uplifted the continent before anyone else. The message was clear. This innovation was not for sale. It was for sovereignty. And then it happened. On a bright morning, under the gaze of millions watching live, Africa's self-powered air taxi completed its first public, uninterrupted city-to-city flight. No fuel, no recharging, just seamless, clean, self-sustained flight. The world watched in awe. What many thought impossible had now become undeniable. That single flight became more than a demonstration. It was a turning point. The age of dependency on fossil fuels, batteries, and outdated infrastructure had been challenged. And the challenge came not from usual centers of power, but from a continent too often dismissed. Elon Musk himself reportedly admitted, "This changes everything." And indeed it did. The race of the skies was no longer about who could build the fastest jet or the most powerful rocket. It was about who could master a future where energy flowed endlessly, freely, and cleanly. And so, Africa's self-powered air taxi was not just the birth of a new machine. It was the birth of a new chapter in human history. A chapter where innovation could come from anywhere, where ideas could no longer be silenced, and where the skies themselves became a canvas for hope. The world had changed forever, and it all began with a flight that no one believed was possible.